So, how about this?
So how about this?
How about this?
So how about 2020?
It has been a great year. I'm sad to see it go. I've heard no one say anything negative about it. It's been a blast.
Oh yeah, I am just royally depressed that this shit show of a year is going to be soon over.
Wait, you're saying it was a shit show?
Oh, in the best kind of way. You know, it's kind of like when you see a train wreck happen, and at a certain point in time, you're like, I just don't know where all these cars are coming. Like, this is impressive.
How many dead bodies can fall out of this car?
Right? You're like, oh my goodness, this train car crashed, and it was filled with clown cars, filled with smaller people. That's
it was a Lilliputian train wreck.
So just to give you a heads up, buddy, right there.
I was going through a drawer.
All right. But yeah, it's been a crazy year, dude. I figured we'd take a moment and talk about what's been going on in 2020, tell the people, hey, shit's crazy, haven't had guests on, we're doing new things just like always, and have some fun. So
yeah, we're hopefully, if everybody can stop being made of poison, we'll try to get guests again and tell them about the special thing we have now, Mr. Rafiq Shaheen. Oh, by the way, your name is Rafiq Shaheen, and my name is Alan Dempsey. Now, Rafiq Shaheen, tell them about the special surprise.
So if you guys like anything that we do here, which, is hard to believe, but if you like anything that we do here, we have t-shirts now. Hey!
Woo! I'm more surprised than anybody. I get a text from Rafiq, our merch is ready. And I was like, we have merch? What's happening?
Right. So if you go to teespring.com/stores/touch-of-swag, because that's the only way I could get that to fucking work. You can go to our store, buy a t-shirt or like a tote bag or something.
But Rafiq, what was that address again?
That was teespring.com/touch-of-swag.
With little dashes between each touch of swag, right?
Yes.
I just now learned that right now. I didn't know that either. Maybe I'll go buy one of my own t-shirts.
Right. You can go there. You can buy t-shirts. I'm going to be making up more designs as we go forward. But right now I have some older designs from some older projects I was working on, as well as merchandise that's our faces on your body. So, that's fantastic in all the right kind of ways.
Oh, baby.
And, we're trying to say, I'm trying to save up so we can get my Allan like a decent setup, so that way we sound better. So if you like what you see, go buy a t-shirt. Support.
Please, sir, may I have a microphone? All I've got is me fingerless gloves and me hat.
There's always that thing in Oliver Twist where they go like, "Oh, I'm poor and Cockney," right? And I always look at that and I go like, I know the 1800s were rough, man, but I feel like any one of you could just choose to stop being an orphan, which sounds like such a
choose to stop being an orphan? Is that what you just said?
Yes, this is the era of child labor. So I'm like, you couldn't show up at a factory and just be like, hey man, I'll lose a couple fingers, fucking put me to work.
Hey, have you ever seen the movie Big Shots?
No, I don't think so.
It's like one of those 80s kids go on an adventure movies, and this white kid ends up in the scary black part of town because black people are scary. You know how that goes. And he runs into a black kid who's about his age, and the black kid has been totally living on his own and taking care of himself for 2 years. He has an apartment It's awesome.
Yes, that sounds. And all I'm saying is, I go, Oliver Twist doesn't have the hustle of a black man.
Well, not many people do.
That's all I'm saying, baby. I don't know. Like,
So we wanted to really close out this year with some joy by talking about all the hell that we've been through this year. And
not just there have been some good moments too, which gonna talk about.
So we've each come prepared. Well, I came kind of prepared. I've got at least 2 things I could talk about, but you had 3 things you definitely wanted to go with. So you go first.
All right. So I guess, since we're just talking about what's been going on with us and the big things over 2020 and running the fucking podcast, is I got a new job. Yeah.
Me too.
Right. Yeah. Well, see, that's one of the weird things about this year is like so many people got new jobs, but not by choice. Like,
right. Well, I interrupted. Tell us all. And here's one thing that I've learned about you in the 2 years or whatever we've been doing this podcast is you love every job you've ever had. So let's hear about how much you love this job that you have.
I will say this. My love for every job that I've ever had is still continuing strong. But as time goes on, the thing that drives me nuts is kind of shrinking in size.
How can this be?
Right?
Did you finally find a therapist?
No. So, like, this is the thing, right? So, ever since I've started working as an adult, like, how you have your first job when you're a kid, and you're like, I've got a real job, and then you, like, turn 21, and you get your first real job, and you're like, oh, I didn't fucking know anything when I was, like, 17. Like,
right.
That's it. Like, so ever since then, I've been working jobs in which, like, I'm good at, right? But my heart's not really in them because the thing I want to do, right, doesn't pay well and doesn't fucking. It's a challenge to put it mildly to get into it,
Right.
And I'm still working towards that end goal. I still want to perform, on a professional level, and still working at that. But like I've been working day jobs like most people, Most people go to work and they're like, I hate this job, but like I want to not suck dick in an alleyway in order to afford rent. So
you call those people cowards.
Right. I mean, now they've just transitioned. Now it's not in an alleyway. Now at least they get to do it in the comfort of their own home in front of their OnlyFans.
Hell yeah. If anyone wanted to see me naked, you can promise you I may have an OnlyFans myself this moment.
Okay, so get it off topic, but like there's always something about OnlyFans where I go, I can't believe that like just as a society we're all going like, oh no, it's not whoring yourself out, it's an OnlyFans, it's socially acceptable. Because I'm huge on body positivity. So I go like, hell yeah, do whatever you want, all right? Like, suck as much dick as you want as long as that makes you feel good and you're not hurting anybody. But it just boggles my mind that, like, I haven't heard, like even a snippet of, like, some church pastor ranting about OnlyFans from the pulpit.
Well, I think that's because he doesn't know about it yet. I don't think it has slipped into the mainstream as much as you think it has. I think if you went into your regular white bread vanilla office and just went from cubicle to cubicle and said, "Do you know what OnlyFans is? Do you know what OnlyFans is?" I think you'd probably get a 40% positive on that. You got to remember, you and I hang out with weirdos, so we know. And not only that, we are both tragically perverted. So we know what the fucking OnlyFans is.
Okay, hold up. I gotta take you back a second. Tragically perverted.
Well, I mean, we are talking about you and I here.
Right? I mean, like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying when you use the word tragically perverted, we're talking like Shakespearean levels of like, oh no,
Hey,
poor Horatio.
compared to the sexual expectations of Shakespeare's time, we are tragically perverted.
You know what? I will absolutely give you that. I'll rescind my comments, Your Honor.
Yeah. Yes. Strike that one from the record, Your Honor. I'll have none of that in my court.
Right. So yes,
So how much? So the real question is, just how much do you hate the current job?
I hate it less than I did working at the casino.
Okay.
Just saying something, right? So if anyone who, since we're just putting this out there, I used to work for private I used to work for a personal security company. Then I worked for private security. Then I worked for the federal government, and then I worked for the casino, and now I'm working for a government organization again because the air is made of poison, and those jobs have become available. Yes. And those jobs pay surprisingly well. But it's kind of a weird transition because I went from being classified as an essential employee when I was working at the casino to now no longer being an essential employee, despite the fact that I work for the government. So,
yeah, and aren't you doing, not to blow up your spot here, but you're doing like COVID related work, aren't you?
Yes. So
but you're not essential.
Yeah, I'm not classified as essential, so I can just lose my job tomorrow if we go back into lockdown. Nice. But, meanwhile, if you work at the casino, you're classified as an essential employee. And it's you and McDonald's, I guess, who are classified as essential.
Yes, and Wendy's and Burger King. Don't forget Taco Bell. If the COVID won't kill you, the Taco Bell will.
Right.
They should put that out like on their fucking sign.
Did I ever tell you how nuts that used to drive me when I was working at the casino and I would see fucking McDonald's open?
Oh, you've told me.
Right, just for the people at home, it boggles my mind because lockdown happened here in Florida. Everybody was like, "All right, 2 weeks, stay inside. We'll get this under control." Except every day I drove outside, people were making more and more excuses for why they were essential. It's like, oh, well, construction workers are essential. And it's like, who the fuck are you building this for? Right? Like, do you got to be somewhere? Oh, well, McDonald's is essential. It's essential.
I mean, was it ever officially declared essential, or did it just not close?
That's actually a good question. I can't remember. I know at my last shitty job, I received a little letter that I still have in my glove compartment box stating that if I got pulled over by the police to explain how I was classified as essential.
That's crazy.
I don't know if McDonald's.
By the way, wait a minute. We're also acknowledging that the casino was open during lockdown, right?
Well, so partially. Right? Because the casino was all federal land, so they could do whatever the fuck they wanted. But the casino wasn't open, but they still needed security personnel on, company grounds because it's a fucking $1 billion facility. You don't want some homeless guy, breaking in and sleeping on Elvis's gold piano.
But I want to sleep on Elvis's gold piano now. Sounds awesome.
So, you would show up and, it was this whole thing of you're essential to us. And it's like, I don't think that's what this is supposed to mean, but.
Oh, I've got a total, urban legend friend of a friend Elvis story if you want to hear it.
Oh, go ahead.
So this is a total friend of a friend. My dad knew a guy who knew a guy. So who knows if any of this is in any way true. But apparently there was this guy who wound up at Elvis's house one night, like during one of Elvis's parties, and Elvis had a piano in the corner, and the guy was playing piano, and Elvis asked him to play some old gospel song, like "Just a Closer Walk with Thee" or whatever, and Elvis like really liked it and started paying the guy like $50,000 a year or something, and we're talking like 1960 $50,000 a year, and apparently this guy's only job was 24 hours a day. He was on call, so when Elvis wanted to hear "Just a Closer Walk with Thee," he would have to like drag his ass out of bed and go play "Just a Closer Walk with Thee" for Elvis, and then go back to bed.
Dude, see, here's the thing about rich people, right? There's a certain level of rich where you do get that like detached from humanity. And I gotta admit, if I could find the right rich person to hang around who's like, yeah, man, I pay Rafiq, like $120,000 a year just because he makes the best Kermit the Frog voice I've ever heard.
Right.
I'd be like, yeah, man.
Well, I think there's also kind of a baller thing going on there too, where Elvis is like, yeah, I'm the man. I can pay people to make frog voices for me all day, motherfucker.
Yeah, right. And like that's the trade-off, right? Is you got to find like one rich person who's that crazy, but not enough that they involve you in like the real serious shit.
Well, it's also that old money versus new money thing, right? You and I were just talking. The last time you were here at my house, we were talking about how you wanted to have a 24-hour blowjob. You wanted to be so rich that you could have somebody on your penis for 24 full hours. Right. Like, that's new money thinking. If you were born into money, you wouldn't do that shit. You'd be, creating weird wrestling and shooting your wrestlers.
See, but that's the thing, right? The only difference is old money has already done that before.
Right, exactly.
So they've moved beyond the realm of, well, I'm going to pay, and to be in my defense, I technically said a team of people to blow me for 20
somebody. I didn't qualify that it had to be the same person.
I still stand by that. The idea of like, hey man, I'm just gonna try and see what the sensation is for 24 hours.
It would be. There's no way that it doesn't eventually become miserable. And it's not hour 18 that it becomes miserable. It becomes miserable at like hour 2.5. There comes a point where it's like, okay, this is starting to like annoy me. I need this to stop.
See, here's the question, right? Because I go, if you hit hour 2.5, right, and it's miserable, but then at hour 3.25, it goes from miserable to glorious again.
With the help of cocaine.
Right? I go, what's that point? Right?
So it's really not even a pleasure thing. It's just an endurance test for you.
Kinda, I guess, yeah. Think about it like this, right? How many famous people have you heard of, right, who have died from choke jerking?
There was, it's all rumor, right? But I think they said the guy from NXS died from that. Carradine apparently died from that. Right. I got two. That's two.
Right, and this is my point, though, is like, I would never do it just because wholeheartedly I'm a wuss. So I go, no, I'm too afraid of even accidentally choking myself a little bit.
Rafiq, you're such a pussy that you won't risk killing yourself to jerk off. You're such a wuss. I don't even know why I hang out with you.
Right, but my point is like choke jerking has got to be some like hallelujah chorus nonsense in order for you to even consider doing it.
Well, right? I think really the crux of it is doing it alone. That's really where it gets stupid. Like if I knew, like, I don't even really think I understand how to do it right. But if I knew how to do it right, like, okay, lady that I'm fucking, you want to try the choke thing? So you stand over there and keep a close eye on me so as I don't die. Like, it just seems pretty, like, did David Carradine have a hard time finding pussy? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, and so I think David Carradine.
By the way, post Kill Bill David Carradine.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that fame didn't really stick with him post Kill Bill. You know what I mean? Like I think he
Dude,
was.
all he had to do was walk into a horror convention and point. You, and you. We're fucking. Let's go.
I think you're vastly overestimating how good looking David Carradine was.
It's not about good looking. You know that. It's about, oh, he's the guy from Kill Bill. I'ma fuck him.
Maybe I'll think about this and get back to you. I really feel the need to.
Good looking. Have you seen the male celebrities out there?
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Although my my point still stands though is like you got to be it like it has to be some next level shit in order for like if you look at David Carradine, right, in your example, and you go, there's got to be something intrinsically extra about this experience, and for in order for you to go like, yeah, I'm on board with this. So I look at that and I go, there's got to be some like maybe something about getting blown for 24 hours hits that extra spot where you go like, so the first 4 hours are terrible, and then you hit hour 5 and it's like you're on an acid trip for the next 6. Like,
Yeah, okay. I think I see what you're saying. It's kind of like going into like one of those weird hot huts and doing weird breathing shit. And it sucks for a while, and then eventually like you start to see God.
Right, and that's my point is I go at what moment, right? Because I go, if you have a fucking $1 billion, like a billion, maybe not even a billion, like $100 million.
Oh, there are some toothless skanks out there. You don't need a billion for your 24-hour blowjob.
Yeah, but I mean, like you want them to be. I think
if you made 120 grand a year, you could find participants. Now they wouldn't be quality participants, but you could find participants.
But that's what I'm saying is find yourself some quality participants. Let's set it at 5 million, right? Yeah, $5 million to pay the people whatever they need to be paid. If they want to be paid, who knows? Maybe you put out a casting call and explain what's going on. I don't know how you set that up, but that's
put a link on your OnlyFans.
Right, yeah, exactly.
All back.
So I go again, first hour you're like, oh, this is amazing. Second hour you're like, this is miserable. Hour 3 you're like, this is the worst. Why did I ever do this? And then you hit hour 4 and it's like, holy shit, like I can speak other languages now. I've opened the third eye that I didn't know that I had. Turns out it's not in your forehead, it's on the tip of your dick. Like that's
it almost sounds like it's perseverance through torture or something. Like it's like I want someone to punch me in the face for 24 hours on the off chance that by hour 5 it'll start to get awesome.
And that's the thing. It's like I'm not saying like, yeah, okay, this has to be done. I'm just saying my original point, and just to explain to the people at home, is like my original point is the thing that I don't like about the uber wealthy, is the fact of like you never hear about like any of this shit. You always hear of like some rich dude buying a new mansion or like fucking raising the prices on like fucking EpiPens or some bullshit, or like that. I think his name was like Martin Shkreli or whatever.
Yeah, Shkreli.
That douchebag buying like the only copy of a record.
I think today, I don't even think it was yesterday. I think this morning as I was getting ready for work, I was thinking about that. How he bought that Wu-Tang record.
Right.
Crazy you just brought that up.
Right. And I look at that and I go like, the problem I have is like, that's so boring. Right? Like
here's the thing. That guy's a turd. But I do respect that he is an unapologetic Lex Luthor. Like we finally engineered that guy. Like I'm not even going to say that Trump is Lex Luthor because I don't think Trump is smart enough to be Lex Luthor. Like We could do the whole thing about how evil Trump is. I don't think he's evil. I think he's an idiot, you know. But Shkreli is like, no, dude, I'm evil. I'm straight evil, and I don't care. And guess what? You can't do anything about it. Ha ha.
Right. See, and we've talked about this before, person to person, but I actually have a soft spot for that kind of like devilishness.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Because I go, if you're so evil that when someone goes like, "Hey man, you're a Nazi," and you go, "Oh, I know," and then you fucking zig heil out of there, I go, you got to respect the fact that
you're not even like secretively Nazi. You're just like, oh yeah, dude, straight up Nazi. Watch me get out of here and watch you do nothing about it. Clomp, 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 clomp.
Right. And I look at that dude and I go, that guy is such a huge turd. Let's go kick his ass. But I also go, you do kind of have to respect the fact of like, he's such a fucking asshole that he just owned the fact that he was an asshole.
Exactly. You got to respect it on some level. At some point, you got to go, you know what, Joker? You're a sadistic psycho, but I respect your game.
Right? Like, it's like, hey, man, hands down, you figure this shit out. And, all right.
So I also, in 2020, I got a new job. I got laid off in March, and I was working for a live entertainment company, and then the world shut down, so you can do the math there. And from mid-March to mid-November, like the days are almost exactly the same. It was like March 19th, November 16th, something like that. I was completely unemployed. So, 2020 was awesome. And the Florida, I wish I could make this funnier for the podcast, but I just have the Florida unemployment system was so ass backwards for months because the entire state was suddenly unemployed. I read an article that said employment was going up before COVID in the state of Florida. So the unemployment office had whittled their staff down to 6 people or something like that. And then COVID hit and the whole state was unemployed. So I can't begin to describe to you how ass backwards. It took me a month. I couldn't get on because I couldn't get my password. So it took me a month to just be able to get someone on the phone to get a password. Then it took me another month to be able to use the website and use the password because the website was so overloaded. Then to this day, I cannot tell you how or what or when I was supposed to be getting money. Because the website kept telling me, I had this whole situation where I got laid off in 2014, so I was on unemployment back then. And the website kept telling me, we can't give you money because you owe us money from 2014. There's a whole backstory there. But then I just kept getting money, and I don't know where that money was coming from. And then I was supposed to be direct deposit, but one day I went to my mailbox and there was a paper check for unemployment. It never made any kind of sense ever.
Dude, so I had a similar thing when I transitioned from the casino put me on furlough at one point in time because they're a $1 billion company, but they're trying to save, I guess, $20,000 in paychecks.
Right.
So they whittled us down to what they classified essential staff, and I went and I applied for unemployment because I had talked to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, if you're furloughed for any reason, you can apply. And so I applied and I was like, well, I'll be fine. It sucks. It's going to take money out of my account, but whatever. And then one day I just received a check for money.
For money? Did it say on it? Did it say amount money? Is that what it said on the top?
Right. And I went back and I was like, this doesn't seem right. And so I tried to call a person and then they're like, nah, no one's available. And I was like, okay. So like I went online and I checked out and I was like, was this the stimulus check? And it was like, no. And it was like, was this another thing? And then it was like, no. And I was like, okay, well, let me not cash this because they're supposed to be sending me another one next week, right? At least according to the website. And then the state never sent me another check. So I went and
Nice.
I just went like, okay, I'm just gonna cash this one and call it easy.
Let's roll the dice on this. That's how it felt like every time unemployment gave me money for months until it eventually leveled off and there was like an actual schedule. But for the longest time, it was like, all right, I guess I got money now. Okay, I guess I'm gonna pay some bills. I don't know what's going on.
Right. It's very weird because like on the one hand, you go like, I don't want to cheat the system. But the system is so fucked up that you're like, I can't tell if I'm cheating the system or
Exactly.
if the
And guess what?
system
Here's the exciting part. The state of Florida doesn't know if you cheated them because they were so fucked for so long.
right? And like it's such a weird like in between state. um,
So, do you want to go to the heavier topics? We can sandwich. So we had a positive thing there. We both got new jobs.
right.
We've both suffered some tragedy this year, but then we could maybe swing it around positive there at the end.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
You go first because yours is it's both bad, but yours is real bad.
Yeah. So I think I've mentioned this before on like the Twitter account or whatever, but this past year my father died. He died at the end of October. And it's been a thing. It's I'm still a little raw about it.
It's only been 2 months for God's sake, not even.
Yeah. And the weirdest thing, it's that thing about death and tragedy where like I didn't even have a great relationship with my dad to begin with. You know what I mean? But like there are honestly like random moments where like something will just remind me of him and I'm like, oh cool, I can't cry in the middle of this meeting because that just seems fucking insane.
Yeah, that's a bitch. Yeah, I know that feeling, man. That's awful. And let's I don't want to make light, but I do find it, if we're talking about 2020 sucks, like I'm tiptoeing here because I don't want to be crass, but I think it's worth mentioning that your dad didn't even get hit by COVID.
Yes,
that's how bad 2020 sucked. He just had his situation and left. Yeah,
and like that, and I guess that's one of the weirder things about it is because like on the one hand, as a comic, so like pretty much like a night or two before he passed, I was on stage. And, it was one of those things where it's like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to see my dad before he dies just because of COVID and everything like that. So on the one hand, my comic brain is just going like, make a joke about it. Make a joke.
Right.
That's what you do. Like, make it funny. That's the thing, and like I kind of did at one point, even though I was like, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but like I have a joke that I've said to you before, but I have a joke about Casey Anthony that I do from time to time. And like I did it that night and some dude was like very disapproving of it. And he was like, you could hear him like grumbling, like, oh, it's a tragedy what happened, blah, blah, blah. And so like without thinking about it, I was like, between you and my dying dad, that's two people disappointed in my comedy.
That's great.
And it's one of those things where it's like, it was such a difficult moment because again, you're not trying to make light of it, but there's also part of me going, Robert Shaheen dying in 2020 is such a Robert Shaheen thing to do. To take this year full of tragedy and hardship and be like, but what about me though?
Yeah, that's funny.
So like it's been difficult. Like we just recently went and scattered his ashes, which was kind of an interesting experience. So like we used to have this house up in Virginia that he owned for years and years and years, and he loved it. And eventually, once things got really bad and he lost most of his money and everything like that later on in his life, he had to end up selling that house, right? Uh, and like it was interesting going back there to scatter his ashes for two reasons. One, because we were definitely
I don't know if
breaking.
your computer audio, you're getting text messages, and I can hear it, you dingus.
I'm not getting any text
I'm
messages.
hearing boom.
Mm.
Oh shit, maybe that's me. Hold on, what's going on? That is me. Sorry. Oh, I'm hearing it only through my headphones. That's why I got confused. I apologize.
So it was a weird thing because we were definitely trespassing on somebody else's property at that point.
Yeah.
But we went out into the woods back behind this house, and we scattered his ashes, which was kind of a nice thing. It was also very interesting because have you ever heard that expression of like you can never go home again?
Oh yeah.
So it was one of those moments because like we were there, and there's always been a part of me that's like, if you ever made it rich or whatever, like you definitely need to buy that house back because it's part of your like heritage or whatever. Kind of to not in a real like show the old man we could do it, but kind of as a thing of like it is a nice house and it is a place that I grew up in. So it would be nice to be like, well, I own this thing again, that I enjoyed as a child, and now the Shaheen house is righted once more. Blah 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 blah. Right? That's a theatrical side of me, at work.
Sure.
But going there and seeing it in person, it was one of those things of like, oh, like even if we did buy this house, it still looks nice, but it looks like it's falling into disrepair, and it was kind of a moment of poetry because you're like, oh wow, this is like a great metaphor for my dad's life.
Oh god.
Because it was this beautiful old house that just it could have been something amazing, it could have been something great, but just due to neglect and because it never really managed to live up to its full potential, it just kind of has hit a point where it's like this needs serious rehab. uh you know. And so it was one of those things where like we did it, and Tosh and his wife went up, and scattered his ashes, and then we went and we did our usual thing where we cut down our own Christmas tree. And it was one of those moments where it was both sad and kind of poetic because it's like, well, this is a real moment where you have to sit there and go like, all we can do is face forward.
Yeah, I mean, not to get weird about it, but I think on some level there is, this is going to sound really stupid, but hang in there. I think on some level with a death, you kind of have the luxury of having kind of built-in closure, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like you don't have to spend time wondering and contemplate. You can just go like the
right.
and then especially if you all get together and go scatter the ashes, like you're the kind of the lines in the sand are drawn for you.
Right. Like there's no continuation, going forward.
Right.
There's no moment where like we're going to be sitting down at home, or I should say, hopefully there's no moment where we're sitting down at home and my dad throws open the door like some 80s sitcom
right.
TV show. You're like, you guys left me out in the woods,
Right,
like,
exactly.
I will say, when you're talking about like that kind of definitive closure, one of the interesting things that I always thought about my dad's relationship and mine was there was a period of time for like a couple years where we just did not talk or see each other, and there was always a little portion in my head that knew he was getting older, and it was legitimately to the point where it's like he could have died and I never would have known.
Yeah.
And so there was like a real kind of like a Shane kind of quality to that train of thought where it's like, I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing. If you just hit 90 years old and you're like, I don't know if my father ever died. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's still around. Maybe he died like 40 years ago, but I don't know,
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. I will say I have been taking part of the reason why I haven't been pushing for new episodes and everything like I usually do is just it's this whole year has taken so much out of me trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Ironically, I have a show coming up.
Hey, when is that show, Rafiq?
It's going to be December 23rd, I believe. Let me just double check on.
All right, so make sure you come out and see Rafiq on December 23rd.
So the whole reason why I was saying that is because, like, I wrote a bunch of new jokes for it, just getting ready for it and yada, yada, yada. And there's, like, a big portion of me that's, like, the show must go on, like, it doesn't matter the fact that this happened, like, you still have to be funny, you still have to, push, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same point in time, it's like, there's a lot of me that's like, man, I don't even know if I want to do like make people laugh for right now, just because it's like I'm so tired. Just because this year has taken so much out of me. It's like I'm just tired.
So let me give you some advice to get through this show. Take right now, look around you. Tell me the first object you see.
A bottle of gin.
Bottle of gin. So here's what you need to do to get through this show. You get up there and you go, what's the deal with a bottle of gin? And you will just annihilate. Now pick another object. You know what? I'll do it for you. I have a mouse here on my computer. What's the deal with a mouse? And you're just going to crush, and you just name objects, and you ask people what's the deal with that object, and you'll be fine.
All right. I'll bear that in mind. What's interesting though is again, not super been in the mood to be funny, but like I wrote probably like 5 or 10 minutes on like holiday humor since it's a holiday show. And like I went out to one open mic and I kind of did some bits, and like they're all well constructed. So some of them hit, some of them definitely need improvement. But there is that thing of like, just that moment where like you kind of recognize. There's a certain point for the people at home. I don't know if you're other comics or just people listening. There's a certain point where like when you have been performing long enough, where you can just do material and you're like, this is well constructed. Right, like you're like you don't know if it's going to kill, you don't know if it's going to flop or whatever, but you go like people are definitely going to be interested in hearing this. You just need to see what you need to do to make it funny per se, And it's one of those things where like even though I've been sad and everything because of everything going on, there's part of me that's like I was able to bang out like 5 to 10 minutes of this and get up on stage, do okay, and then get off stage, and it's like, man, I didn't even put my heart into that. Like,
yeah, but you're punching a bag. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just one of those things of like you said, it's like punching a bag. Comics use that reference as far as comedy is concerned all the time. It's like open mics are like working out. It's like punching a bag, getting in a street fight. I think that was Tracy Morgan.
Playing Street Fighter, playing Mortal Kombat, all that stuff.
No, I think Tracy Morgan said like comedy is like getting into a boxing match or a street fight or whatever. But my point is that like there is a certain point with any kind of entertainment, whether it's music or whatever, where like you've just done it enough times where you're like, what the motions are, right? Even if you're not fucking knocking it, fucking doing a Freddie Mercury solo in the middle of fucking world tour, you go like, I can hit the high notes well enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like just been dealing with that, facing forward. Traveled, like I said, to cut down the tree, after we had scattered my dad's ashes. So I have a tree in my living room that has traveled like 3,000 miles to be here. And that's pretty much
It's too bad there are no trees in Florida.
But here's the thing, right? So every year we go and cut down the tree and whatever for the folks at home. Because like there are trees in Florida, but they suck. Dude, they suck so bad. Like the local fucking sand pines are either sharp as fucking balls, like razor sharp, like fucking knives, like ridiculous. Or they're just these limp dick kind of like long needled trees.
Those little sad Charlie Brown trees.
Yeah, exactly. They're the kind of trees where you're like, Charlie Brown would look at this and go like, nah, I'm good.
Wait, maybe I'm thinking of the Grinch. The Grinch is the one who had that real sad, like shriveled up tree where like the star was hanging by its own weight.
I think both of them had that problem. I think
Okay.
Charlie Brown has the tree that's just a stick with the star, and I think it hangs.
It's an old aluminum pole, and he celebrates Festivus.
Right. Festivus. Okay, so I'm just gonna say this just because somebody at work asked me about this. I am so fucking tired of Kwanzaa questions being somebody from Africa.
So, have we ever? I feel like we've talked about this. Have we ever talked about Kwanzaa?
We've kind of talked about it before.
Have you ever done it on mic? Is what I'm asking. Here's the deal.
No,
this is completely straight white man talking. So let's all just put that on the table. So when I was teaching, one year it was like the week before Christmas, and I had to do something with my reading class. So one day we did the Christmas story. The next day we did the Hanukkah story, and the next day we did the Kwanzaa story. And what I discovered is that Kwanzaa is a made-up holiday.
It is.
Like some professor who, and I get the spirit of it. I really do. He was like, we don't have a holiday that, celebrates our heritage. So what he did was he just made one up. And he just kind of went, well, this will just encompass all Africans who ended up on this land. And what do? I don't know, light a candle or something? Like, it's just, a guy just made up a holiday in like the 70s. And now it's a holiday.
Dude, you know what's so insane about it too, about the made up portion of the holiday, is when you look at the actual traditions for Kwanzaa, they're not even original. It's like he saw Christmas and he saw Hanukkah and he was like, I'm gonna take half of each of these. There's a fucking menorah, even though they don't call it a menorah. There's a Kwanzaa bush, which is clearly just a Christmas tree.
Wait a minute. I got this image now of him just going through his closet. He's just going like, yeah, this'll work.
Right? And it's so insane. And the thing that sucks about it as somebody from Africa is once a year, guaranteed, someone will ask me about Kwanzaa, and part of me wants to be like, dude, that's your own made up bullshit. We didn't have anything to do with this.
Dude, and I think for me that was the shock, was that if you don't know what it is, you assume that it's coming from this like rich tradition. oh, this person's African. They must celebrate Kwanzaa. And it's like, no, dude, that's not what's happening. It's an American holiday that some dude just went, I'm gonna make a holiday.
And it's like, nigga, I celebrate Christmas like the rest of you. Like, and one of the things that boggles my mind too about it is like, you know what Kwanzaa has, at least as far as I've been adult, you know what Kwanzaa has lost out to every year is Festivus.
Well,
I've heard more adults talk about Festivus than I've heard them talk about Kwanzaa. So there's a certain portion of me that wants to just wishes I could go on TV, like have a spot on the Daily Show and just be like, hey guys, just as an announcement, we're stopping the whole Kwanzaa thing, right? Like we all agree this didn't work out, right? So we're just gonna go, okay, right? We might try again in another decade or so, but for right now, you guys can just stop pretending that we all know what it is and just move on. Like just celebrate Festivus like the rest of us. Like
yes, a Festivus for the rest of us.
Yeah. It is so boggling because again, guaranteed once per year. Once somebody knows that I'm African, there's always like one person in my social circle who will just gradually like reach out, and it always starts off like the same weird way too. It's always like, "Hey, happy holidays," and I'm like, "Happy holidays," and they're like, "Merry Christmas," and you're like, "Merry Christmas," and they're like, what's the word for people who celebrate Kwanzaa? And it's like, I don't know, man. It's like
again, I have compassion for that guy because that guy has been told that this is a rich African heritage holiday. So because you're African, they're like trying to be on your side and be like, you guys celebrate Kwanzaa, right? No, right. Nobody does.
One of the bits I'm working on currently was just the fact of like, this past year when I was having a conversation with somebody, there was a portion of me that was like, I could just make up whatever and they would just believe that it's part of the tradition.
Oh, yeah.
Like if I just say it with enough authority, it's now part of the tradition and no one can question it.
The celebrated fucking of the goat.
Right. It's like, well, what I'm going to need in order to celebrate Kwanzaa is I'm going to need $5,000 and your 72-inch plasma screen 4K TV. And I'll thank you not to disparage my heritage, Philip.
All right, I think we're getting close to the end here. I'll try to end on I'm going to end on a weirdly positive for me.
Okay.
My tragedy this year is I got my heart shit on. Really got fucked over hard by someone who. Sorry.
Have we ever really talked about her on the podcast?
Here and there. I mean, anecdotally is the word. Incidentally, incidentally is probably the word. Anyway,
explain to the people at home what happened.
I don't know what happened. That's what happened. It's not, there's no time or energy to go through it, but essentially about November of last year, give or take, she just kind of nuked the relationship. She just kicked in the door, flipped over the card table and said, all right, basically she was like, hey, I spent the first 2 years teaching you that we were playing poker, but I was actually playing chess the whole time. And now you're playing chess. And if you don't like it, you can fuck off. And like none of it makes any sense because it doesn't seem to have come from a place of like she didn't have any direct complaint in the relationship. It wasn't like I was out fucking up and she had to change things. It was just like suddenly overnight, this is the way it's going to be now. And guess what? It fucked up the relationship real bad. And somehow, in the midst of all that, I got treated like I was the one who hurt her. And then I got, we were like essentially engaged. We had made a lifelong commitment to, she broke up with me via text message.
Ooh, that is like the worst way. Well, I mean, maybe it's not the worst way. I used to break up people for money, so like it's not the worst way to be broken up, but it's definitely up there. Like it's such a casually cruel way to be like, no, we're done. It's like,
Yeah, and after like years of being told I was a member of the family, like days after she broke up with me, she's like, "I'm not going to stand in the way of you hanging out with these girls." And I'm like, "So now I have a gatekeeper. I was told for 3 years that I was a member of the family. Now I have a gatekeeper." It's just
right.
fucking ugly. And just so that's the negative. It's been brutal because I mean it's shattered my life. And that's what I was saying before with the death thing. If one of my family elders died, there would be a ton of grief there. But there's still a definitive, like, okay, this is over. This is like, oh, your entire existence has been nuked. And I'm not comparing. I'm not saying one of us is having it harder than the other. I'm just saying, like,
I know what you're talking about. Like it's that thing of like your situation is much more nebulous because
yes, good word.
Theoretically, in like 5 years, she could come back and be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for everything," and then you get back together or whatever.
Right.
But like with the situation with my dad, it's like, no, that's it. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying before, and I'm sure it sounded weird when I said it, but I think there is at least a comfort in a death of knowing, like, it is what it is.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it's been horrible. It's been tragic. Every time I'm making progress, I still find myself the next day in tears for some reason. Weird little triggers that don't even barely make sense. But ending on the positive, I'm feeling good about, how do I say this without sounding just cornball? Like, it sucks that I have to rebuild. It sucks that I'm in this situation. I've got a whole lot of emotional shit I still gotta sift through and will have to sift through for a while. But I'm excited by the fact that I am kind of like rebuilding my life. Like, okay, I have an opportunity here. I can sit and wallow in this, and sometimes that you need to do that. Sometimes you do need to sit and wallow in it, but I also have the opportunity here. The hardest, one of the hardest parts of this for me is like, I'm going to be 42 in like 4 days, and I'm still single, and I'm still never married, and basically her kids were my kids, and now I'm back to having no kids. Like, there's all that horse shit. But it's like, well, I'm still alive, I'm still here, and now maybe I have an opportunity to, to rebuild myself, and and it sucks that I had to be here, and there's a lot that I will never forgive her for, but I've still got the opportunity now to, do that thing, go to that place, try to build that whatever,
There's that thing Bill Burr said a long while ago about failure. And I'm not saying that, what happened with you is necessarily a failure on your part or her part or the relationship. But there's a thing he talks about with failure where he goes, there's worse things than being 40 years old and sleeping on a futon.
Huh. That's good.
And when he's talking about going out to conquer your dreams or whatever. And, in kind of the same light, like there are worse things. I guess to put it I guess it's my turn to be weird, but to put it like this, that's probably better that things self-destructed now as opposed to you making this lifelong commitment, getting in like 10 years.
Right.
And then you find her shagging your dog and going, I don't love you.
She kind of did that metaphorically. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, you know what I'm talking about. It's one of those things where, like, it's funny because, like, so on part of this trip, I actually set up a bunch of dates with people because, my dating lifestyle is fucking atrocious. And
what though? You have one. Here's the thing I don't understand. I don't do it right, apparently. Because I don't even get swipes back on you send me photos of these fucking goddesses, and you're like, I'm thinking about going out with her. I'm like, I can't get twos to swipe back on me. What is going on?
Right. I mean, so, but this is the thing, though, is like talking about, the differences between people. One of the things that we recently talked about that has kind of stuck with me is, and especially looking at my dad and what happened with him in his life is, it's kind of made me realize I might be going on dates with these women, but they're not turning into like real long term relationships.
Right.
So I've been kind of rethinking my relationships, with people in general and what I'm looking for in a partner, because there may be part of me that, is being too draconian as like, okay, this is what I want out of a partner. You're not that thing. Like it's that thing of like everything else is perfect except you left your shoelaces untied. Get the fuck out of my life and never look back. Kind of nonsense. So it may just be like, hey man, you don't want to be like your dad. You want to be better than that. So maybe it's time to relook and think about where you can compromise on certain things. But I still ascertain my two problems are I either date women. Well, my biggest problem with dating as a whole is that women aren't into me, which is always
There's more into you than there are me. Right. You at least get swipes back, man.
Right. But it's always that thing of like when you're dating somebody, I always find myself either with somebody who I am way more into than they are into me, so inevitably they go, and they just move on. Or I find myself in a relationship with somebody who is essentially looking to me to be their like surrogate parent. And it's like, I'm not your dad.
Yeah. Like I've heard, I can't tell you the number of women that you've said that about where that is a common complaint with the girls you date.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about, where it's like, because those are the two problems. I was talking to somebody, just before dad passed where, like I thought we were hitting it off and she was like, I'm not looking for a boyfriend right now, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay, cool. Like we can just fool around and, like maybe if you change your mind later, I won't put all my hopes on it, but, you won't put all your hopes on it, yada, yada, yada. And it seemed like we were growing closer. And then just the other day, she sent me a text message that's like, yeah, I'm hanging out with the almost boyfriend. And it's like, oh, cool. So you moved on way farther than I did.
Oh, I thought I was the almost boyfriend. I get it now.
And so that's what I'm saying to you about you in this situation is that there are worse things than this happening, and now's the time maybe to rethink what's going on and the kind of people you're attracted to and yada yada yada, and like you said, take it
and I've been not to get too into it, but I've definitely made some good choices in that regard. I've had the opportunity to indulge some urges that I said, you know what, this may end up being long-term painful for either me or the other person. So now's not the time for me to be doing that, even though I could get away with doing that.
Right.
Yeah, whatever.
It's that thing about hedonism where you're like, oh, cool, so I can do this with no consequences, and then there are consequences, and you're like, somebody lied to me about this thing.
Right. I mean, I think there's definitely a difference between like swinger party hedonism and like friends with benefits hedonism. Like, right. The second one sounds great on paper. How often does that really work in the real world? And also, it's again, learning, growing. It's a condition of looking at the parties involved. Maybe I could be a legit friends with benefits with that person, but I can tell between me and this other person, it's not going to happen.
So I know this is a weird tangent to go on, especially since we're getting so close to the end of this recording.
Yeah.
But like, Do you think that's the reason why like elderly people in nursing homes fuck so much?
I think
Right?
that, you're okay. So you're talking about consequences, right? Well, nobody's getting pregnant. If you get a disease, what? You're 70 anyway. Who gives a shit?
Right, but that's part of what I'm talking about with like the difference, like you're saying, between friends with benefits and like swinger party hedonism. Because like if you're 70, 80, whatever, you can just look. I feel like you're at that age where you can just look at people and you're like, well, Ethel would be good swinger party, material, but she's definitely not friends with benefits material. So like, I'll fuck her in this context, but not in this
Right. Well,
context.
and that's what I'm saying. Like, it may not even be about Ethel. It may not be her. Like, it's the two of you, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, I know that I could just casually fuck this person, but I know if I started casually fucking that person, it's probably going to get messy, you know?
Yeah. And that I guess that is something you just learn as you get older, is you just learn to spot the people where you're like, this is a yes, this is a yes, this would be a no, this is someone I'd fall in love with who would fuck up my life, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. So, but I guess all I'm urging you to do is like, hey, take some heart in this, like you have been. There are worse experiences you could have gone through.
Yeah.
So,
And it hasn't been easy, and I don't by any means pretend it's over. I mean, it was early August, so it's not even yet been like 5 months, but um,
holy dude, that is the thing that fucks me up the most about 2020. Is like, not to interrupt you, but like this has been a year where there has just been so much shit going on that like I legit, until you said that right now, thought that this had occurred a year ago.
wow.
Like,
Yeah, no, I
and
I got shit on in early August.
right, yeah, exactly. And it's like when I think of dad dying, it didn't dawn on me until just now. It's like, oh, that was only like a month and a half ago.
Right, exactly.
In my brain, it's like that was like half a year ago, right? Like,
So, but whatever. In that time, in the last 4 whatever months it's been, um, it has been easy. And if you talk about like falling off the wagon emotionally, or like taking steps back, or however you want to phrase it, I've definitely done that, and I probably will again. But I've also like have to keep reminding myself, like, no, I made some really good choices. Like, not even a full week later, I wrote her a goodbye letter, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this
right,
shit. And like, that was a really good choice. And you remember, look, I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I've been drinking. I actually texted you and like 5 other people one day, and I was like, dude, tell me right now why I shouldn't email her because I'm having a real hard time. And I got this
right,
wonderful response from everybody that was like, hey, man, remember how she treated you like shit? And it was like, oh, yeah, I do remember that. Thanks.
right. And that's the thing, dude. Is like you are absolutely on point with that. Where it's like, yeah, it's going to take time, and it's going to take and you're probably going to backslide like we all do when we're in that situation. But at least you have now put a cap on that for
Exactly.
2020, and it's like, hey man, there's like 21 days left in this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully it don't get worse before then, but like this has been such a crazy year so
Oh,
far.
just wait. Trump will find a way to steal the election, and it'll make 2020 like a beautiful little bow at the end.
Oh, dude, before we go, I wanted to play this game with you just one day out of the blue, and I feel like now's a good time to. What is the craziest story you? So much has happened in 2020. What is the craziest story you can remember from 2020?
God, the first thing that pops into my head, even though technically these events didn't happen in 2020, but the first thing that pops into my head is Tiger King. Just go watch Tiger King, and just it was released in 2020. So, but just the events, like every time you think these people can't get more insane, they get more insane.
Right. For me, the moment that 2020 jumped the shark was literally when 2020 introduced lava sharks. And I think that was like in June or
Dude,
like June.
I don't even know what you're talking about. What is by the way, when did we start our ska band called the Lava Sharks?
Right. So again, this is what I'm talking about, like how insane 2020 has been. So I think it was like June or July or something like that. Remember when we were all playing that game where everyone was doing like 2020 bingo? And they're like,
oh, right.
What other crazy shit did anyone have for this month? Like Jared Leto's sex cult, which is a real thing.
Yes, they call him the Prophet.
Right.
Did you hear about him coming back? You know what? Fuck it. This may be a double-parter because now I'm excited. Did you hear about how he didn't even know any of this was going on?
Wait, what do you mean he didn't know that this was going on?
No, not his cult. Sorry, COVID. He was out. I don't know if he was with his cult, but he was out doing some bored rich people shit, like going to some retreat, where they sit in a hut and breathe or whatever. And then like just was doing that for a few months and then came back home and the world was shut down. And he was like, huh? What's happening? What's going on?
Dude, how... Oh my goodness. I can't even begin to imagine how weird that would be, right? Like imagine if you were just sitting around in the vaults, right?
Right.
And then you came out and someone was like, oh, by the way, this is what you've missed in the first 3 months of 2020. We are now 8 months in. You have a lot of shit to catch up on.
You know what? We're not talking about the one thing we should have been talking about for the last hour and 12 minutes. What the fuck is a lava shark?
Okay, so again, it happened in, I think it was like June or July of this year, but like somebody was studying like volcanic activity on like the sea floor out in, I think it was like the Pacific Ocean, and they discovered there's like a specific breed of shark that has started making their schools around these lava vents. So they kind of like live amongst these lava vents. So somebody just coined the term lava sharks.
That's like some Jack Kirby shit, man.
Right. And there was a part of me that was like, this is the moment where like the writers for 2020 have just been like, we don't know what we're doing anymore. Like, we got, so are we going to do the eruption thing? Or are we going to do shark attacks, like orphanage? And someone was like, we don't have enough time in the episode for it. So why don't we just put the two of them together and just do lava sharks?
Hey, I got another positive for 2020. You ready for this?
Go ahead.
There has been... let's put it this way. In my world and the things that I consume, there has been a lot of really good entertainment to come out this year. I've bought a lot of really good new albums. Mr. Bungle came back and released an album that is fucking fantastic. Yeah. I've seen a bunch of really good movies and TV shows that came out in 2020. This has been a pretty decent fucking year for entertainment, man.
So I think that's kind of the weird catch-22 about it, right? Is because I feel like, because I don't know how many of those shows were made during quarantine itself.
Right.
Right? Like, or if this was just one of those things where it's like, hey man, you're trapped home alone, you got nothing to do. If you are like a semi-rich musician or whatever and you got your own recording studio, why the fuck wouldn't you? Like you're at home for 6 months. Why wouldn't you try and knock out a new album? You got no other distractions. No one's calling you to fucking hang out with them. So fucking do it, right? Like,
yeah. Circle of Dust. They haven't released the full album. They're going to release the full album in 2021, which is funny. They're doing their 25th anniversary mix It's they. It's he. He's going to do the
Right.
first. What's funny about that is he didn't finish it in 2020. So in 2021, he's going to release the 25th anniversary album, but it will be the 26th year.
Right.
But it's really, if anyone out there knows anything that I'm talking about, this guy released like techno industrial music in 95. Then he remastered it. No, let's back up. In 92, he records an album. In 95, he gets the opportunity to re-record the album because he wasn't happy with it. In 2016, he got the rights back to the album and remastered it. And now in 2020, he's completely remixing the thing from the ground up using like modern mixing stuff. And I'm the asshole who will keep buying this album no matter how many times he releases it.
Just keep on supporting this one dude.
There's one album that he can't let go
of. Dude. Oh, so speaking of not letting go of things and people dying in 2020, did you hear about Kanye West's digital necromancy?
That does not jibe with his Jesus stuff, man. I'm very disappointed in him.
Right.
I didn't hear about this. You got to tell me about this.
Okay, so Kim Kardashian, you know me. I don't really give a fuck about celebrities for the most part. You know, if you show me like a photo of, Bruce or Kylie Jenner and a photo of Bruce Jenner, and you're like, are these two different people? I'd go, I don't know who either of them are.
I don't know any of these people. What are you talking about?
Like I've heard the name before.
You don't care so much that you said the wrong name. You said Kylie, and her name is Caitlyn, which I respect. Okay. Which I fucking respect.
Right, but my point is that like so for for his wife's birthday, Kanye West got one of those CGI like digital holograms made of Kim Kardashian's father. I think it's Kim Kardashian, whoever his wife is.
Yeah, it's Kim. I'm disappointed in myself. I should know as little as you do, but I apparently need to correct you. So that I need there's still work to be done inside of me because apparently I care enough to know her name.
So all I really know about the Kardashians is there's Kim Kardashian, and then there's like
the other two.
Right, there's like 2 or 3 others, and their father was Johnny Cochran, and I think it was
so he got Kim to talk to her CGI dad. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. So he got a CGI hologram of her father made, who went on to tell her how proud he is of her.
Oh no! Oh God!
How much he loves her, and again, just out of pure insanity, how great of a husband Kanye West
is. Oh my God! I need to see this.
Right, and it is one of those things where I go, man, I don't know if I can't wait for the singularity or if it's going to suck balls. Right, because the idea of me passing away, or not even. Let's say we go 40 years into the future, right? I'm an old fucking man now, and one of my grandkids goes, hey, Dad, for Granddad's birthday, let's bring his dead father back to life so he can have one final conversation.
So he can tell his daughter how great this other guy is, so we can make it about that guy.
Right, and because I go, I don't even know how I would handle that, but this is calling back to what we were talking about before. I do have to give Kanye West props. As far as being a rich, crazy person is concerned, that's a pretty high watermark to hit.
Yeah, he nailed it. He might be your guy.
Right? Because I go like, because I feel going like, Kanye, let's go have an actual naval battle. Right? Let's go get
But stay with me on this. The boats. Oh God, it's in my head and I don't know if I can get it out of my mouth. Like, you remember when you were a kid, like the big wheels? where there was like a giant kid in the middle of a tiny little four-wheeler.
Right.
That's what the boats are. So, like, the top half of your body is sticking out of this small replica of, like, a naval with, like, torpedoes and shit on it.
Right. See, but that's my point, though, is I suggest that, and Kanye goes, nah, we going to be ancient Roman captains and have full-fledged naval battles. And you're like, what do you mean? And Kanye's like, I'm going to own some slaves. And you're like,
no, don't do that. Don't do that.
And then before you know it, like, there's a photo of, like, you kind of, like, trepidly behind Kanye West on, like, a Roman trireme, right? Like, sailing the ocean with a league of other ships. And then you just conquer Greece at one point, and you're like, I don't even fucking know how this happens, man. Like, Kanye's got way too much fucking money, and no one's gonna stop him. Like, oh man, like, I get digital fucking necromancy.
That's
like
good.
That. The murder hornets were a thing this year. Murder hornets,
yeah. I always like to come up with band names. My band name for this year was COVID and the Murder Hornets.
That's not okay. So here, I guess going along with that, here's my question: what's the first 3 songs on the album?
Well, it's clearly a rockabilly band. Right. So if we're doing covers, I don't know, maybe Oh Boy, some Buddy Holly. I don't know. That's all I got.
Here's my question: the 3 titles. All right. Well, like, song number 1 is what?
Oh, I don't know, man. It's a rockabilly band. We haven't started recording yet. Don't put all this pressure on me, producer. We're still trying to buy the right hair gel, so back up.
Right. Fucking going all the way back. You remember when everyone was buying fucking toilet paper in bulk?
Did I tell you about accidentally having toilet paper in bulk?
No.
I have not purchased toilet paper. I think in the year of 2020, I have purchased toilet paper twice. So, okay. You know how Amazon does their subscriptions?
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain kind of toilet paper that I really like that I couldn't find anywhere, but I could find it on Amazon. And I didn't realize that I was buying like these cases of it that were like, I don't know, 1 million rolls per case. I don't know what the numbers are, but I was buying. But then I tried to like alter the subscription because I was getting too much. And somehow I subscribed to it twice. So, like, I just kept coming home to these cases of toilet paper. And then when the toilet paper fever hit, I just, like, opened my garage door and I was like, I'm golden. And just closed my door and moved on.
So this is, for me, my insane toilet paper thing was I found a bulk roll of toilet paper in an abandoned shopping cart at a Sam's Club, like maybe like 2 months before all of this, like probably in December of last year. I found it, and it was like one of those 48 roll packs or whatever. And so I've had it in my apartment this entire time. I'm only down to the last roll now.
Nice.
So there's somebody that's looking around going like, you insane motherfuckers who are buying like the 3 packs of 36 roll toilet paper. Like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? Right? Like, what was the fear there? I don't even remember acutely what prompted people to just go start buying toilet paper. It was just it's one of those insane things about 2020 that when you look back in the history books and somebody goes, the great toilet paper scare of 2020, I kind of go,
yeah, it is. I had that same reaction. I was like, of all the things to get in a panic about, like, you're not worried about fruit. Like that. Nobody's fighting over apples.
Right. It's like you're not seeing that crazy. I guess to a certain extent, people wanted it to be the end so badly too. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a not to get all Grant Morrison here, but I think there is something to the idea that like you start to try to push an idea into reality. So like when COVID first started happening and the lockdowns first started happening, the number of people I saw on social media who were like unironically saying like it's about to get all Mad Max. You know, it's like there's this thing where we kind of we create the reality we want to see, you know.
Right. Like, which sucks because that means our version of Mad Max is so fucking lame.
Yeah.
Like nobody's wearing like assless leather chaps in the streets. Like
I know. There's no guy with a hockey mask on who's challenging me for gasoline. This is bullshit.
Right? Just walk away. Just walk away. You know, like it's so like that's always the disappointing thing for me about like the difference between what we see on the big screen and how people think it's going to play out in real life. Because there's always part of you that goes, it's not going to be that same way, right? You know, like it's never okay. You know, like the aliens are going to show up and it's going to be this big spectacle and we're going to defeat them in this climactic battle or whatever, right? And you go, it's just going to be a thing. But there's always part of you that goes like, but it should be cooler than it actually is. And what it usually is so fucking lame.
That's actually one of the things I kind of respect about Star Wars is that like the Empire was so bad, but like how often are these people just bouncing from planet to planet and they're fine? Like
right.
People are buying, people are selling, nobody's being blown up, you know.
Yeah, I'd be like, that is a good point. It's like Mos Eisley was still a running city, even at the
end. Just fine. Mos Eisley was fine.
Yeah. It's always so weird because like you hit those moments where like you're again, as somebody who watches way too much fucking movies and television, whatever, you're like, oh yeah, man, I can't wait until the cool thing happens. And then real life gets in the way and you're like, oh, this is so fucking lame until every now and again you actually hit the adventurous portion of the thing and it's just so much more insane than anything you've ever seen in a movie and you're like, oh wow, like this is wow. And it's like it just sucks because there's no in between. Again, you want the zombie apocalypse where you're like, all right, cool, it's gonna be like me and Allan and like 3 like grungy dudes and like 4 hot and inexplicably hot women, despite the fact that there should be like no makeup.
Look, let me just tell you now, when it does go on Mad Max, because we clearly want it to, you don't want me on your side. You're going to have to take care of me. I'm going to start bleeding from the ass. The insulin's going to start to become a problem. Just, you don't need me. Trust me.
You know, it's funny that you say that. I actually read a story it might have been last year or it might have been the year before. I think it's called 6 Seconds After Midnight, I think it was. But the whole idea was a EMP hits the U.S., and it's like, how do we survive after that, right? And one of the first sad things that happens in the book is like the family that's kind of like the central characters in the book. They're like, I think it's their grandfather or like their best friend. It's the youngest daughter. That's it. She needs insulin. And so like there's a whole thing about like, holy shit, our daughter's going to die because we can't find insulin.
I missed something. Is this something you wrote? Is that what you just said?
No, this is something I read.
I heard wrote. I got excited.
No. So the whole premise was like they were looking at this and they're like, we don't know what we're going to do in order to keep her alive because insulin doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want me on your Mad Max team. I'm telling you. Insulin is problem one. Insulin is problem one. Problem two is when the UC kicks in and I'm just bleeding, dripping blood out of my ass. Trust me. Yeah, I'm not on your team.
See, but that's how we make it cool. Is that way we just paint your ass cheeks and your face with your own blood, and we call you the streaker or something like that, right?
Okay, but it's not just like casually dripping blood. Like there's a lot of pain. I can't do anything. I'm constantly shitting the blood. I am a burden during Mad Max. I'm telling you.
I'm not saying you're around for long. I'm just saying
but you're gonna get entertainment out of me while you can. Is what I'm hearing.
Right? I'm saying is we strap you right to the hood of a vehicle and we tell all the communities we're raiding. Right, this is what happens when you don't listen to us, and you get to scream in pain. Right, and then at the end of the night, we take you down, and we're like, "Oh, are you okay? We got more medicine from them. Here you go, buddy. Like you get first choice."
Nice. Right? Very nice.
Right, it's symbiotic, right?
Well, 2020 has been something, and we are the first persons to ever say that. Right. And I think we're at an hour 30, so we can release an hour 30, and I think we're good here.
Yeah.
Go to our merch store, which is located at.
You can find our merch store at Teespring/stores/Touch of Swag.
And we do plan to bring in guests. This is the first remote episode we've done where we are not in the same room, so we're working the bugs out there. There's probably not that many bugs. We just don't know what we're doing, but we will get guests. We got our next episode is going to be a good one. I'm very excited about it. I'm going to show Rafiq another fantastic film, and I got a question for you, Rafiq.
Yeah, well, what's that?
What about this?
So how about this?
No.
So.